One of the bitter lessons of the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai was just how exposed India's commandos were when they attacked terrorists who were hiding inside the Taj and two other locations in the city. India lost two NSG commandos, among them Major Sandeep Unnikrishnan, who was shot at by terrorists in November 2008. 6 years later, India's anti-terrorist forces have new vehicles that have been designed after lessons were learned from the 26/11 attacks. Now, those are the photographs on your screens of those new vehicles that have been developed specifically to help security forces take on terrorists who hold up inside buildings, up staircases, and even into narrow alleys. The new vehicles are being tested by the CRPF and other paramilitary and police forces across the country. They are designed on all-terrain vehicle platforms and have been developed by a government laboratory in Ahmednagar in Maharashtra for the Home Ministry. Each vehicle can carry up to 3 fully equipped anti-terror commandos and also provides them protection against small arms fire and hand grenades. They are expected to enter full service by the end of the year. So new vehicles being brought out by India's anti-terror squad, developed entirely at home and specifically for close quarters combat. Again, lessons learned after 26/11, where NSG commandos had to go into narrow spaces and were exposed to fire from terrorists. These vehicles, as we told you, are able to withstand bullets that are up to 7.62 millimeters in their diameter. That is a bullet that can be fired from an AK-47 rifle, which is probably one of the most commonly used weapons by terrorists. It can also withstand hand grenade attacks. Remember, Major Unnikrishnan died in a volley of fire from one of the terrorists in the Taj. The other NSG operator, Gajendra Singh, was killed in a hand grenade explosion. So new vehicles that have been developed by the DRDO in Maharashtra and one of its labs in Ahmednagar that have been developed specifically for India's counter-terror forces. Gaurav Sawant, our Strategic Affairs Editor, is with us now for more on this. Gaurav, we've been giving our viewers the details of what these vehicles are capable of. Tell us a bit about the background and the context that led to their development.
During the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, when the National Security Guard commandos, they went into the Taj Hotel, the Pakistani terrorists, the Pakistan-trained Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists were well entrenched. They fired at Major Unnikrishnan and his team and other commandos from strategic locations. That is when our commandos had problems, whether it was climbing stairs or going into rooms, going from room to room or going from one corridor to the other. That's the time this vehicle was conceptualized, which would be a small vehicle, can take a team of 3, can take on stairs, can climb stairs very easily and can protect those inside it from small arms fire. Usually terrorists carry either 5.56 mm rounds or 7.62 mm rounds. So it can protect those inside from these rounds and also from shrapnel of grenades. So conceptualized for urban warfare in restricted space. The trials are going on, and so far we are told that the security forces are fairly satisfied with this vehicle. There are other tests this vehicle will be put through.
All right, Shivarur also helps us understand what these vehicles are about, and here's a report he sent us earlier.
The two biggest problems faced by Indian commandos when they fought Pakistani terrorists during the 26/11 operations was getting up close to the terrorists and actually surviving their bullets, beating the vulnerability. What we've got here on Headlines today are the first pictures of the brand new made-in-India vehicles that are currently being tested by India's anti-terror forces, the paramilitary forces, the NSG, as well as police forces. Take a look, for example, at this specialty vehicle. It's a tracked vehicle, which means it has tracks with the ability to access the most hostile areas. But the most important part of a vehicle of this kind, this huge viewing window allowing for weapons, 3 fully equipped combat troops can sit inside a vehicle of this kind. And the importance of a vehicle of this kind is it is completely mobile. It allows 3 fully armed anti-terror troops from the NSG or from the paramilitary forces to actually get into a hotel, for example, for instance, go up in a hail of bullets. Even if a grenade is actually lobbed, they'll be able to survive it, because this entire area, this entire armor protects them from ammunition up to 7.6 millimeter and also from a grenade attack. The other 2 vehicles are built similarly. There's a wheeled vehicle with a low noise ratio, which means that it has an electric motor, making it extremely silent and allowing people inside this vehicle to creep up on terrorists if necessary. Now, these 3 vehicles are currently in just the prototype stage, which means they are only being tested at this time. But we believe that by the end of this year, the NSG, the paramilitary forces and state police could have these vehicles at their disposal to find terrorists.
Shiv Arora is on the phone line with us right now. Shiv, you showed us 3 different configurations in that report. Are they for different kinds of operations?
Those are for different kinds of operations, but essentially in the same kind of setting, Pierre. The tracked vehicle that we actually had on our screen, is designed to be able to actually, go upstairs, make very, very, short turns in a sort of constricted space, and still provide, 3 fully armed combatants, armed with either a rocket launcher or an assault rifle, giving them the ability to get very, very close to, enemy combatants to be able to take them out. The other 2 vehicles, there's one which is a low-noise vehicle, which is wheeled, and another conventional vehicle, which is also wheeled, which could, conceivably be deployed, in an urban setting, for instance, if terrorists are holed up inside a house, to be able to access an area which, otherwise troops, even with bulletproof equipment, wouldn't be able to access. Now, like Gaurav correctly pointed out, Pierre, this is still work in progress. This is the first time we've got pictures of these vehicles, which gives you a sense of which way, the requirement is actually going. And as we've been reporting, the CRPF and the BSF have actually already sort of torture tested these vehicles at test ranges in Chandigarh and the Thar Desert. So over the next 12 to 16 months is what we're hearing, when these vehicles will be fine-tuned. Their armor conceivably will be, also improved. Maybe they'll have some new capabilities, better visibility, and then they'll be inducted into service.
Let me go back to Gaurav, who's still with us. Thanks for that, Shiv. Gaurav, one of the interesting things about these 3 vehicles in particular is how quickly they've been developed. They're probably one of the fastest concept to existing product in the history of Indian weapons development.
Well, post 26/11, we've seen a sea change in the way this country combats terror and prepares its soldiers to combat terror. What my sources in the Ministry of Home Affairs are also telling me, that terror fighters themselves are now increasingly becoming a part of conceptualizing the kind of equipment they require to combat terror. This, of course, as Shiv was rightly pointing out, is still a prototype. But from conceptual stage to a prototype which is being tested to then induction, it should, as Shiv was saying, become a reality in the next 12 to 18 months. But look at the nature of warfare in the times to come. It's going to be urban warfare. It's going to be in restricted areas. It's going to be with terrorists more than regular army, more than, conventional enemies that you fight. So in all of it, the nature of combating the terror is also changing. And increasingly, you'll see countries that are facing the brunt of whether it's Pakistan-sponsored terror or terror from a certain region in this world. You'll all be seeing those forces uniting, including in conceptualizing equipment that is required to combat terror, including those rifles which can just look on the other side of a wall and then fire.
Gaurav, while we're talking about the vehicles that are helping troops, so we've also seen, and perhaps publicly for the first time in the past couple of weeks, the NSG commandos themselves have gone through a complete refit of their gear. They had bulky and oftentimes rather restrictive gear during 26/11, much more modernized equipment since then.
Well, the latest, you have MP5 Heckler & Koch weapons that they carry. Their body armor is much better, much lighter. Their night vision devices are so much better, because again, it's these terror fighters themselves who are now responsible for, one, part of it procurement, two, telling the government what they require. And from what my sources in the current establishment tell me, that they've been told sky is the limit. You have to protect this country from terrorists, and whatever you require will be provided to you. To a large extent, there will, in the days and weeks to come, we'll see a change. Instead of importing everything, there's a lot of talk about not just transfer of technology, but manufacturing it within this country right from scratch, as we see with this vehicle. Initially, what is required for emergency will be procured from abroad. The rest will be manufactured here.
Gaurav Samant, many thanks for that update. It certainly is very encouraging for counter-terrorism officers to see these kinds of vehicles coming up and allowing them to do their job as professionally as they possibly can.